AI can build you compliance and risk monitoring
Mm-hmm.
capabilities as well to start to find those things. So we have a long way to go before there's trust in the system, right? There's a long way to go before we're going to fully trust that things can be done the way that the technology will allow them to be done. And I think that's a bit of the conflict we see, say, between like a pure data science mindset, right? I'm a data scientist and I'm like, I can do all of that, right? I can do all the things that you want it to do, and I can even have risk compliance, and I can even find those problems, and give me enough time and the machine will learn.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining on today's episode of The Future of, where we are going to be exploring more around the topic of customer experiences, specifically around AI and customer experience. We're joined by Ryan Serpan. He is the head of US AI-driven customer experience at Blend 360. I'll let him do a quick introduction on himself.
All right, excellent. Thanks, AJ, and happy to be here. Happy to join you today. Yeah, and the AI-driven customer experience world is one that we've really embarked on heavily over the last several years, right? Taking the world of automation and evolving automation to intelligent automation, right? And this idea that we're going to take a step beyond just, allowing the machine to drive things. We want the machine to drive things intelligently, right? And that's a pretty cool opportunity for us as marketers, as service people, as sales support teams, as customer experience drivers to say, how can we now take what we do and elevate our ability to scale it at mass? So it's a pretty cool environment, and I'm excited to chat with you about that today.
Yeah, it's really exciting stuff. Previously we had a talk around personalization and a little bit on hyper personalization as part of that customer journey. And, one of the things you and I talked about prior to hopping on today was, this statistic around where brands consider themselves as part of their personalization strategy or how far along that's been implemented. You said that, within particular parts of a brand, there could be as much as 80% of CTOs saying, hey, we have a great personalization strategy. And then for the same segment, only 8% of their customers are saying, oh, this is relevant. So let's talk about what the brand's customer journey is, and then where it's headed, and what is this disconnect between brands, their strategy, and then the customer's expectations and experiences.
Yeah, so I think the study that you're referencing was essentially a CX Council study. And imagine they do this. They get on the phone with business and they say, business, how good are you at personalizing? How good are you at relevant customer experience? And these businesses came back in their report and said, we're great. 80% responded, we're very, very good at personalization. Those same businesses, then they asked the customers of those businesses, how good are they at personalization or relevancy to you? And the answer was only 8% felt like they had relevant responses. And they start to think about why. Why would that be the situation, right? And put yourselves in the seat of the person answering that question. You work in a department, or you work in a product area, or you work in a group, right? So maybe you're a marketer, maybe you're a product owner, maybe you're in a particular business unit. And yes, you've invested in a ton of personalization tools. You're running personalization strategies. Personalization's been on your OKR. You're measuring personalization, but you're measuring it at the product level. Or maybe you're measuring it at the tactical level, the channel, right? One space. And so while personalization may be good in a piece of your business, it's got to be good across the business. Your customers don't think of you as your call center. They don't think of you as your email department. They don't think of you as your service team, right? They think of the brand. And I think that's where we're seeing the disconnect is you might individually at a business unit by business unit or product level be very, very good at some personalization, but your core, your entire brand experience is not matching that. And that's the disconnect that we see right now, right?
Mm-hmm. So let's think about it from the perspective of I'm a customer.
Yeah.
Right. What does my journey even look like with the brand? Right. What are the different phases or stages? What are the interactions that I might be experiencing with that brand?
Yeah. Well, obviously we can think of a traditional funnel, right? You're acquiring me for the first time. I've never bought a product from you once ever in my life, and you're acquiring me and you're bringing me into the funnel. but maybe I've been in the funnel. I've bought from you 100 times, and really you're trying to change and maintain a relationship with me. Maybe I've bought from you. I used to buy a lot from you, but I'm finding other competitors to be able to deliver me a better experience. So now you're losing that kind of feel with me. So we call that nurture. We call that re-engage, right? So certainly from the life cycle of the different experiences that we can have, you have these layers of ability to say, when is the right and relevant time to be engaging customers with different life cycles, right? So I think that would be a pretty standard model. But this would get back to, I think, the fragmentation that we just talked about, right? Marketing might be very, very good at personalization when it comes to getting them in the door and showing a ROAS number. This might be really, really good at IVR deflection and taking care of you when you're in a call center engagement, right? But let's take this scenario into play. I called the call center and I'm angry because I just got a bill, or something's wrong with the product that I'm dealing with, or I'm just unhappy with the piece of my experience. And so I'm having that interaction right now with the call center. I'm talking to someone in service, frustrated, I'm angry, I'm upset. And marketing is about 3 minutes away from clicking go on an email send that was automated or triggered or something would happen. And that marketing is going to try to upsell me to new product family or a new area of the business or something. And there's this separation, right, between those two experiences that are happening right now. So we're talking about days where connective tissue from the acquisition to the upsell and the cross sell to the nurture stages have got to be real time. Got to be after real time. So if I'm here on the phone calling and discussing something with the call center, that interaction that's about to happen on email, or I'm about to log back into the site later this afternoon, or some other touch point, I'm about to walk into a retail store and I'm going to have an experience there. Can we create an environment where every single channel has the same information, the same interaction history, the same understanding of sentiment, and then do something about it, do something about it in real time? That's like the advent of where we're at in CX right now.
Yeah, I feel, to what you just said, calling up and you're about to make a complaint with customer service. So I literally, one of my mortgages was just sold to another provider, right?
Yep.
I didn't get the mail. I just ended up getting an email saying you're late on a payment for a place I never knew. That then said register for an account. That then asked me for an old account. That then wanted the text. It's like all back and forth.
Yeah.
And then it starts sending me notices that says I'm late, like it's my problem. And every step of the way is just completely disjointed, right? At no point did I feel like they even understood that, they're trying to communicate with me. So, when I think about what I would even expect to have a better experience, it's like, at least know who I am, like know my loan number, have any idea why I'm coming to your site, and then give me any simplification of the task. Like the bar seems so low on that.
Yeah.
We're talking about hyper personalization, threading the needle, and it's like, we're not even getting the basics. What's happening there? What's causing this delta?
Well, I think it has always, will always begin with data quality, data governance, data structure, right? If you have the information, but it's governed poorly, it's not unified in a way where it can be federated properly, it's not interpretable, right, by machine or human. These are the things that are going to break these CX experiences. There is no such thing as modern CX in this day and age where you aren't thinking data first, data at the core of what you're doing. And then AI, right? The ability for us to use machine learning capabilities, the ability for us to use generative AI capabilities, language models to understand things has evolved so quickly in such a short amount of time. But it's also kind of opened to that cornucopia that you're talking about, right? You could have devices that look at that situation and say, hey, before we send this out, I can flag things. Even if that's as far as the AI can go, is I can at least flag this and say someone should look at this before we hit go. All the way to it could control what's sent, when it's sent, and how it's sent. It could notice that you're going to have a conflict, and it could respond to that in a different way. But the core answer to your question is it roots in the data itself. Bad data governance, bad data operability right? Can't get things in real time. You're pulling things from different systems. Susie still keeps it on an Excel spreadsheet because that's what's on. Someone's got a Teradata, on-prem server that if anyone accidentally kicks the thing out of the wall, we're in all deep trouble. And somehow we're trying to bring these data ecosystems together and deliver experiences. And I think
Mm-hmm.
again, now we're back to that broken nature of why we think we're doing personalization well, but we're not, because one area, one group, one department might have a great data structure and they do great stuff with data,
Mm-hmm.
and the one right next door doesn't, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that in itself becomes that breaking point. So CTO, CDAO, right, analytics teams, CIOs, they have to start thinking now about these pockets of data, which are protected for security reasons in a lot of ways, right? Like we have transactional data sitting in a place, and I'm going to protect that data. I'm going to,
Mm-hmm.
put a secure that data to work in other places. And so how do you do that? And how do you do that in a federated way that's safe, security compliant, but also allowing the personalization of experiences to actually be unlocked, right? That's really where we have to start getting to thinking now.
Mm-hmm. That brings up a really interesting aspect. I would say I would call it the duality of people's concern for privacy,
Yeah.
right? They're really concerned about their privacy until they're getting value from not having the same privacy standards as some other things. So, for example, like uh, calling your bank and having it automate with your voice, like it's using your personal biometrics to authenticate you. You gave up some of your privacy, but then you're benefiting from it.
Right.
So, I would imagine these brands are really trying to stay balanced in between. We need to be functional and provide these capabilities, and we need to protect our customer because that's what they're asking for. How are they managing between
Yeah.
these two things?
Yeah, and I think you're getting right at the core of how we have to start to solve problems from a data perspective in terms of what data do I need to personalize an experience. And usually the answer is I don't need everything. I need the right things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I need those pieces of data in ways that I can use them, but I don't have to, necessarily move them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the existing architectures of personalization require you to replicate databases onto other systems. And once
Mm-hmm.
you start trying to replicate, even in batch, even in sync, it becomes a real challenge because now you're saying, well, I have to have security standards not only for my own internal systems, but this partner wants to come in and provide me this capability. And now I got to make sure their security complies. And as soon as you begin to create that replicability, it's going to introduce over and over and over again new security issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's becoming one of the challenges of personalization is there's too much platform approach that is not really working in a way that says I should only be working off of what I need to be working off of, and how am
Mm-hmm.
I going to do that in a secure fashion. And I think you see this now becoming a trend where we go through these cycles in the CX industry of build versus buy trends, right? If we build
Mm-hmm.
our own, we can maintain the security that we need. When we buy systems, we can deploy better tools faster with more compliance, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think we're really at this stage now of we're going to have to find kind of a homogenization between those two worlds, the ability to get the benefits and the value of what a platform partner can do from product
Mm-hmm.
capability, product speed to market, product lifecycle management, but what we need from a security layer from self-managed systems. There's something in between there, right? And I think the processing of data, right, the processing of what has to go where and how it has to go where is one of the other kind of like secret unlocks of AI capabilities right now that isn't the front end sexy stuff. It's not the language model, it's not the generative AI, it's not the AI decisioning automation stuff that makes CX seem fun and really cool, but
Mm-hmm.
it's that pipe work stuff, right? It's that back of the
Mm-hmm.
system stuff that also I think can really benefit from what we can do with AI, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the build versus buy, it just gave me a thought. Do you see brands also taking into consideration the end-to-end quality of the experience that they can deliver and thinking of it almost as a beat the bar or leave type of event where it's all right, if we can't really create a meaningful customer interaction by automating these tools, that we should really consider falling back to human interactions or something else, just so that the customer's privacy is safe and their interaction makes sense instead of being disjointed in these different pieces.
Yeah, I think I want to answer your question kind of in a different approach, which is I think the product companies themselves, right, the solution providers, the solution partners need to make a much deeper dive in their product roadmaps around these data safety and privacy concerns, and many of them are. That's not a pockmark in the entire industry of product. It's more just to say you're going to have more success in the product landscape when that's a major part of your product roadmap versus the front end coolness of things, right? The front end, simplicity of things. There's a point in time in which data operability is going to trump pure sexiness on, front end capabilities. So I think like you're seeing this a lot too with our partners where they are really focused on that side of the house, right? They're really showing that like we're going to go focus on how data gets moved from system to systems, creating operable ML ops environments, creating these operable places where things can happen behind the scenes, and then create services, right? Create microservices of sending data to places that they need to go. But what it's doing is it's changing kind of the paradigm, right? It's changing the paradigm from I need my front end platform to be the thing that's managing the data at the same time. You really don't have to do that anymore, right? You can create data services that are owned, that are in safe and secure architectures. You can create applications or microservices of that data that can still send to the endpoints what are needed, but you can protect and secure things right now, right? So I think from a CX standpoint, this is hard, I think, at times for marketers to understand or campaign operators to understand, because marketers and campaign operators are looking at I want to make it easy for me to drop things on a screen and orchestrate a journey. That's what I'm looking for, right? I want to be able to say email goes out at 4:00, and after the email goes out, this thing happens, and wait for this decision to occur. And if that happens, then this thing goes. And I curate all this really cool stuff because marketers and campaign owners and even service owners love this idea of these, being able to really say, here's the flow of what I want to have happen. Well, we're reaching this advent now where we have to sort of let go of that flow control, and we have to say we can be informed by tools and services, at the data science level, at the modeling level, that tell us when, who, how, and what I should be saying. What we need to be focused on, marketers, is the strategic side of that. What are the moments that matter to the individual? What are the strategies that appeal to that moment? How can we build content strategies that work to kind of elevate and improve the customer experience? And the relationship that the CX individual has to have with the DS team, right, that's delivering those services has got to start to intertwine, right? They're no longer competing organizations, they're one and the same, right? And they're going to work off of each other very differently. And I would say it's not I don't want to use the word conflict in the sense that it's a true conflict, but we still see this a lot with clients where marketing departments are expecting, these capabilities to work in a certain way, and they have this kind of finger of control that they want to have. And I think that finger of control has grown from years of saying, I needed to be able to control the experience because now they're at this point in time where we're saying there's a black magic box of science that can tell you what the right thing is. And more importantly, it can just trigger the thing that you need to have happen. And that's difficult, I would say, for like a marketer or a lifecycle campaign manager, or, to let go of that fact that I don't have to now be in control of the actual buy flow of communication. What I need to be thinking about is what's the right way to create the right experience, and then allow the machine to kind of fuel that experience, right? So that was a long walk, I think, from the question you were asking to what I'm answering here. But I think really it's this kind of new relationship that's building where the trust in the data science and the trust in its ability to deliver what's needed has to be met with the art of the ability for us to say, what's the right art to deliver at the right time? And then we can unlock all of these capabilities at the same time, which will be really cool. Right?
Yeah. That's really helpful. And that touched on a question we were going to talk about later, which was how organizations can begin to reorganize themselves to bring these capabilities together, and what you see successful interoperability look like at different clients that you've serviced. But that being said, I also wanted to ask a little more about, actually, I just forgot the question that I was going to ask on, but yeah, like give us some more examples of what you've seen that works really well, right? And especially the working well, what you talked about on giving up some of that control, that black box, right? What does the journey towards giving up control look like for the individuals or that organizations? Like, how can they start to build trust in the system so that they can leverage it more?
Yeah, I think it's starting in a point solution kind of mindset. And one of the places I think we can see it happening the quickest is in inbound authenticated experiences, right? When I know who the customer is because they have to authenticate at some level, it's a lot easier to then do this kind of shared personalization ecosystem, right? AI decisioning capabilities, some have been around for years and have really matured into certain ways. A lot of the tools we see on the market are bringing AI decisioning into the fold, right? And really it's this idea of saying, all right, let's just say hypothetically in a marketing world, maybe I'm going to get out of marketing. Let's get into like a life cycle world, right? I'm a retail brand and I send several emails a day and I'm doing a whole ton of A/B multivariate time of day send subject line testing, kind of deals. And let's boil this all the way down to just a champion challenger mindset, right? Champion, this is the thing that tends to give me the best results. Here's my new challenger. Test, win, next champion challenger. The reality is that while the champion may have won with an end value high enough to say, yep, it was the winner, it may have only won 62% of the time. But now you're running that champion as like the winner because it won and it drove the higher results that you needed. And the question I think you begin to ask is, well, what about that other 38%? That actually reacted to the other variation? AI decisioning is starting to evolve this world to say it's not champion challenger, it's right message for, right? There's a model behind that to say it's, version A is actually great for these people and version B is actually great for these people. Now, our new challenge, I think, as CX practitioners becomes, can I give enough mass and volume to the ecosystem where I don't just have A or B, I have A through Z, 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 Z. I have enough variability, I have enough variation in my content library that the machine can start to say, yes, there is literally a piece of material that is very, very good for an extremely micro cohort segmentation, if not one-to-one, right? And I can deliver that. Now, the next evolution of that is real-time construction of creative, literally constructing something in real time for Ryan. Now, I don't know that there's enough, seawater in the world to cool the servers to actually keep up with it today, but there is still this kind of an idea where we can get away as CX practitioners from this idea of like A or B, which one's going to win. No, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and the machine can actually, through automated machine learning, begin to understand why element F worked for this particular cohort, and it can say, when I see that person again, I'm going to send them F. Not, this one's better than that one, so I'm sending that one more often. It's a big mind shift, right? So when you're asking about places where we see success in this place, we see it in organizations that have done a very, very good job leveraging AI decisioning, right? So let's say an inbound experience, right? I'm coming into my my account panel, as you mentioned, to pay a bill, right? I'm logging in to pay a bill, and there's a hero box at the top of the page, where I can send some sort of a message there, and I'm going to go the phone route. Okay, everyone's an iPhone user or a Samsung user or a Google user, right? So like we all have our preferences around phones, and this is just a super like sophomoric example of what you could do. But if I know it's phone upgrade time, right, there's going to be an element of my data profile that says that it's phone upgrade time. And in the old marketing world, I needed to go write a rule for that. Is Ryan's phone upgrade due within the next 30 days? If yes, then. But now you don't have to write that rule. In a machine learning world, it can look at me, do a real-time call, pull the data back and say, that's the likely thing that he is in for is a phone upgrade time. Now it can make the next decision. He's never purchased an iPhone once in his entire life, never has, never will. There's not a single iPhone in his entire purchase history. Let's push the Samsung device. I also know that he's likely to buy the premium Samsung device. Let's push that. And I also know that from an offer perspective, he's more likely to take a $350 cash back offer than a, free pair of headphones, whatever the equal value of the offer capabilities are. As marketers, we can begin to think about all of these actions, right, that become part of every way that I could try to make somebody move. And I don't have to try to do it at a segmented level. I don't have to say segment A is Samsung premium, this, and that. And then I need to go, build out that journey. You don't have to build out the journey anymore. All you have to do is build the creative and then give it to the tool. And the tool can say, I see Ryan's going to buy the Samsung. He's going to buy the premium Samsung. He's going to respond to this offer. And yes, this banner is the right banner to present that to him, but I should also send him a text message tomorrow night at 9:00 when he's most likely to react to that. All of those things are federated real-time decisions that can happen and do happen today. And the clients that are allowing that to occur are the ones that are seeing that lift and benefit from these systems, because they're kind of taking their hands off the wheel just a little bit. And they're saying, let's let the machine make the decisions, right? So we're just, and I feel like, truthfully, that being said, we've got clients that have recognized, and this is a very literal, real number, $3 billion of commercial value from the usage of AI decisioning platforms. Now, when we look at it and we say, and they've just scratched the surface. Scratched the surface of what they can do, because they're very good at inbound channel, but they're not quite good at outbound channel yet, right? And so then that new synergy between inbound and outbound is going to unlock the whole next evolution of these things. Ryan was just on Verizon.com and he just looked at a thing, and now I'm going to hit him with a Facebook ad. And I'm going to hit him with that ad on Facebook at this point in time with this exact same offer, because that's going to drive that moment in time. And it's fueled by all these other things that led to that moment. Not that I created a lookalike audience. I tossed it up in there and I said, I think all of these people are the right people right now. It's no longer I think, it's I know. And that's kind of the cool unlock, right, that we see from these kinds of things. So telecommunications brands are having some pretty good success with this right now, because their products are so tight, right? And they're so focused on like a key area of your life and your element. More difficult with wide varieties of SKUs, big SKU families, right? The amount of AI power needed to process that. But that's coming fast, right? That's coming really, really fast, where we're seeing retail now is going, there's a real play here, right? And there's a real ability for us to do that. And we're going away from content recommendation engines, and we're moving towards ML driven, just like actual direct recommendation systems.
Yeah. Wow. So this goes all the way back when we started the conversation. I said, man, why can't I call in and it knows me, who I am, maybe why I called, and gives me a recommendation? And as a customer, it sounds so simple, right? Because I know me, I'm looking introspectively. But now from what you're saying, there are so many pieces, and not just from the technology side. I love what you said, that the organizations have to allow themselves to do it, right? Yeah. They have to be able to team together and trust in the technology to start making the decisions. Otherwise, it's always going to be cultural, like the culture of the organization is going to hold back the capabilities.
Yes.
That.
And what are the cultural barriers? One, let's start with legal and compliance. I mean, that's a big challenge, right? Because this idea that any version of anything can be delivered at any time and it's generated by an LLM, well, how the heck are we, overseeing that? So there's going to be these stage gates as we move towards this, right? Literal, at point in motion, real-time construction of something and delivered. We're a ways away from that. And we're not a ways away from that technologically. We're a ways away from that side of this house, right? This AI compliance side of the house. We'll use an extreme example. An extreme example would say, what if you allowed an AI image generation tool to do something in real time, and it would, put a pregnant, mother in an image with a whiskey glass in her hand? That's the literal scary stuff that we're talking about, where you can be representing things that would not be. And so legal and compliance departments are always going to come back and say, there is no way we are going to allow things to be constructed in real time without some sort of oversight engine. And my response to this generally tends to be, but that's the beauty of AI, is AI can build you compliance and risk monitoring capabilities as well to start to find those things. So we have a long way to go before there's trust in the system, right? There's a long way to go before we're going to fully trust that things can be done the way that the technology will allow them to be done. And I think that's a bit of the conflict we see, say, between like a pure data science mindset, right? I'm a data scientist and I'm like, I can do all of that, right? I can do all the things that you want it to do, and I can even have risk compliance, and I can even find those problems, and give me enough time and the machine will learn. But the marketers, sometimes, or the service technician can be, the other time the campaign owner, the other time can be at the full other end of the spectrum, which is, yeah, but brand voice and tonality and like all these things like really, really matter. And I don't even care if you can deliver the perfect thing. I want the thing to also be a representation. Again, you're going to see this push-pull at all times where a data scientist can say, I can do that. And the marketers can say, I don't believe you. But over time, we're going to come together, because we'll test it, right? Test it in small environments, run it in controlled environments, and then migrate and move out, to new areas and new capabilities. And it's going to get there. But we have to have that push-pull, right? We have to have that kind of balance as CX practitioners, understanding that like there's this hyper personalization real-time vision, and there's also a road to get there. It's not just jump over the fence and we're on the other side, right? And I think as long as we balance that, like with our clients, with ourselves, with our own expectations, we're on our way there, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking about what you said about brand safety specifically, right? So, when I think about innovation and experimentation, and you're always facing against organizations, it's like, why can't we experiment faster? Well, there's, of many pieces, brand safety is a big one, right?
Yes.
And then you said, the ability to create smaller, more granular segments, and then being able to test with those smaller segments. And so on one hand, I'm seeing, yes, your risk pool is a little bit lower, or it can be a lot bit lower. You're testing a message with, tens of people, something like that. But at the same time, all it takes is one person to take a screenshot, put it on social media of choice, and that's it. You're just, all that safety and trust is gone. So, even as we're getting this technology to test rapidly, is it becoming safer for brands to test? We still have a lot of risk there.
Yeah, I like to think of it more like, what is a human assisted way, or an AI assisted way to expand these things, right? So let's take generative AI as an example, right? Really, if you were going to publish, let's say the campaign I was just speaking about, a phone campaign, right? And I know that I need not just iPhone, but several versions and models of iPhones. And I want to show it in the hands of, a retired, couple traveling the world. And I want to show it in the hands of a millennial on a skateboard. And I guess us millennials are actually a lot older than the skateboarding crew anymore, right? A Gen Xer on a skateboard. Now I want to show the millennial listening to their Nirvana tapes. And then, right. But you have all of these different capabilities and options, right? You can say from an image perspective, from a copy and a language perspective, right? The language model that you would use to speak to, my mother versus me, 2 different language models, same ad, 2 different languages, same ad, 2 different images, same ad, 2 different offers, same ad, 2 different models. So you can understand like all of these variations that could be created. And today, yesterday, we would have passed all of that over to our creative agency and said, okay, I created this matrix of 800 potential audience. We're only going to have time to create 40 of those. And then we're going to have to pick the audiences. We're going to have to go curate them into a journey. We're going to go piece them in there. Well, now with generative AI, you can say, hey, here's all the construct of what I need to create. Here's all the variables that tell me the different versions I need to create to that. Click a button. Seconds later, you have a whole matrix of all the different ads that you need. Here's where the human assisted part comes in. I'm not just now clicking a button saying they're all live. You still would maybe have some time to go through and train. Say, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is accepted, this is bad. Now, this is where it gets really, really complicated. How do I then say every single iPhone ad has to be approved by Apple? But now I have to create the environment. I have to create the workflow process, right? To say, even though I picked 85 variants here, that are all going to push the iPhone ad to all my different segments with all my different LLMs, with all my different copy lines and all my different hooks. And Apple is required to be able to approve all of those things. now we're in a ways of working problem. Now we've got workflow issues. Now we've got process issues, because it's not just my team that has the issue, it's the partner that I have to work with that has the issue as well. And so we've got to start thinking as also about how we're enabling our partners, we're enabling other departments, we're enabling legal and compliance organizations to be able to rapidly get involved with this kind of content mass and this kind of content volume, right? And those unlocks are kind of the next evolution, but you're still going to be sending 200 versions that are final stamped versions into the system. And then in 10 years from now, maybe we can talk about 2 million versions that are created in real time, right? Or versions are, so we have those kind of steps we have to go through as CX practitioners to understand that it's not like tomorrow we're just fully letting the beast run, right? The automatic driving cars are not just on the streets, just yet. It's a nice stepwise evolution. And at least in digital CX, we don't kill anyone along the way, right? So.
Yes, exactly. We have one question, and then I want to get further into the whole feedback loop. So David asks, this is going back to what we were talking about, legal, ethical rules, the brand requirements, who's writing the rules? Can Gen AI write the rules on the fly in real time?
Sure. I mean, think of it this way, right? Maybe I wake up in the morning, I'm a brand marketer, or I'm a campaign marketer, I'm a service marketer. I get my cup of coffee out, I start sipping, and I open up Microsoft Word or Google Docs or Workfront, and I start punching out a brief, and I need that brief to do a certain thing. Look, if we haven't all experimented with this already, write your brief with ChatGPT, write your brief with Gemini, write your brief with one of these support LLM tools, and you can say, I need help writing a brief to do a thing, and and you hit a button, and 13 seconds later, you have like a beautifully written thing. Now, you're going to tailor some things, you're going to change a couple of words, but you went from an hour to sit down and create the construct of what you're trying to build to 10 seconds to get something that's an output that you can work from, right? And when you work from that thing, you can get to the next thing faster. So I think this idea of rules is a little bit kind of misconstrued or misunderstood. Rules, kind of imply rigidity, right? But what we're really talking about is we're really talking about trying to create kind of guides. And we're trying to get feedback and response in a lot faster kind of environment than we were before. So I'll take it to the ultimate extreme, right? We could create an entire campaign planning process that looks exactly like I just said. First thing I do, I'm about to build the campaign for this product, and you could type that into a prompting solution and you could hit go. And that product identification, the campaign thing that you said that you're doing, and the tentpole offer that you said is in that, can immediately run off and ask for all of the information it needs to come back and create a marketing campaign for you. It could say, you're going to advertise the iPhone. Last year, it can look at all of the information, all the transactional data, all the historical data, and it can come back and say recommendations on the brief, objective, targeting, criteria, planning, algorithm. It can reach into your MMM and your MTA model and say, here's the spend variance you should use, right? You should buy this much in this channel and that much in that channel. We predict that as the highest level of lift. As a marketer, you could go to that tab on a screen and you could play around with some weighting on that, right? Well, what if I did a little bit of this or a little bit of that? You could do some forecast weighting and you could do some predictive, capabilities. These are all things where your marketing world would go from, I have to send a ticket request over to the data science department to go get me back some segment model. And then I'm going to take that segment and hopefully I can get it as a file that I can upload to Salesforce so I can go make a campaign. That's all going to be gone. You just tell it, this is what I'm trying to do. And it can come back to you and say, you're going to be in this channel with this message. You're going to be in this channel with that message. Your spend variation is going to look like this. And here's what I recommend. But you, the human, are still going to have the ability to curate that, to touch things around, to move things around. So just like we go ask it to help us write a job description, and then we take that and we're like, yeah, but I need to change a couple things and add a couple words and make something more. Imagine that kind of scaled out to a whole campaign planning process where it's still a curated process. It's still the human involved process, but I can go from doing one campaign in several days, just the planning portion of it, to one campaign in an hour and a half. And what used to take creative a couple of weeks to bring back variations can be done in a few hours. And what used to take an MMM or a data science department to produce a full MMM MTA incrementality result so you could do budget planning can be near automated in real time. Data science didn't lose their job. They're building the microservice tools that deliver that now. Creative didn't lose their job. They're doing the brand standards and the guidelines and the training of the models to tell Gen AI how to feed you. Marketer didn't lose their job. They can just do 20 campaigns instead of 2, right? They
Mm-hmm.
can do more personalization in campaigns than they did before. So it's this really cool kind of environment where we're headed to, where it's like scale is about to just be infinite. And that's what's
Mm-hmm.
needed for personalization. If you and I met in the street tomorrow and had a conversation, we're going to have a personal conversation. And if I meet someone else on the street tomorrow, we're going to have a personal conversation at real time, FaceTime, right? And up to this point, really a lot of CX has been about, okay, AJ, we're about to talk on the street, but I can pick this or this. Let's, you know what I mean? And I can present one
Mm-hmm.
to you that I think is going to be as close to relevant as possible. Tomorrow, we're saying we can do almost anything, but as marketers, for me to be able to scale to do almost anything, today would be like, you need 400 people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Completely operationally impossible. So can the same department that you have today create the mass that you need to do the personalization tomorrow? That's what AI is unlocking. We have to think about it
Mm-hmm.
that way, is that's what it's unlocking for us, is the ability to get to scale and mass, right?
That's amazing. I love the way that you put it. And, this concept, hey, AI is going to take away all of these jobs. If anything, what I'm hearing from you is that there is a new layer of roles that need to be created for people who can actually look broadly end to end on this journey, right? It used to be, rolling up to the CMO, but now things move so fast. Do you see that there's new capabilities, new types of roles and structures that's needed to govern this at speed because it's moving so quickly?
Yeah. I'm gonna answer your question kind of like in another day of a life scenario. I'd like to meet the campaign designer on the planet who really, really, truly enjoys going into AJO or Salesforce Journey Builder or Braze and spending days upon days upon days dropping in decision rules, yes, no, variants, wait times, designing, and doing all the little hard, nugget work inside of a tool. Like, seriously, where's the marketer on the planet who loves that? Where's the service campaign driver who really loves getting into that tool and just doing it? And some of us enjoy nerding out on those types of things, but I think a lot of us from the CX side of the business really want to be saying, I want to design the meaningful conversation. So that's why we
Mm-hmm.
like the curation of the journey. That's why we like the touch point design of the journey, because we feel like we're really having a conversation through technology, right? But the new conversation we're having from technology says you don't need to sit there in that tedious environment and map out the touch, the touch, the touch, the touch, the touch, the touch. And what you need to map out is the story, the story, the story, the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every single CX practitioner, from acquisition to lifecycle and nurture practitioners, would love to tell you that they believe in the story and they believe in the experience that's being created, and they want that experience to be enriching. And the
Mm-hmm.
enrichment of that is not in the timing of the send. The
Mm-hmm.
enrichment in that is the message that was communicated at times. So I hope it comes off as inspirational, right? Because
Yeah.
when you think about what a marketer would do today, it's almost like, the expansion of mathematics. 150 years ago, I had an abacus and I was sliding beads around. Now I can punch numbers into a thing, and actually now I can just ask Google to help me, and it gets me an answer in the same amount of time. It doesn't change the fact that my creative brain can ask the question. The tool that I'm
Mm-hmm.
given is a more powerful tool. It really changes things for us.
Yeah. It reminds me of the philosophy behind Amazon and Amazon Web Services. They want to handle the undifferentiated heavy lifting,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
These tools are taking your creative inputs, the mechanical, tedious processes, and saying, no, I'm going to take care of doing the thing. Just tell me what to do. I'm
Yeah.
going to iterate on it. So I
And
love
maybe not
that.
even tell me what to do anymore. Maybe I trust you to say, I'm giving you variants for all these things. I'm giving you the ability to choose the time of day that you should send something, the channel that you should use to send said message, and pick the right piece of creative to send to that person. I'm going to make
Mhm.
sure that all of those variables are filled up with the experience that I want them to have. The machine is going to decide which person gets that variable. I mean, maybe that's the simplest way to just boil this thing off, right? So,
Yeah. And that leads us to I think the last part of that journey that I really want to touch on is, we talked about, hey, we're making decisions, what works, what doesn't. You gave the example of we meet at the street, this one or this one, right?
right.
What kind of signals are we getting back from users that we're actually making these decisions on, right? What data are you seeing for me to act? I mean, open times on emails and conversion rates, like that's easy, but what else is there? What are we sensing from the user to make those decisions?
Yeah, I think in a digital footprint sense, you got to think about it, right? Every single moment in time is a piece of data of some sort, right? And with the advanced analytics platforms that exist, I can capture just about anything from you in real time. When you picked up your phone, which button you clicked, where you clicked on the button, which message you responded to last time, right? I mean, if we could, we'd put eye tracking on everything. We'd know exactly what you look at in the picture, right? If we really wanted to go all the way to the end game. And I think, so when you say like, what pieces of data do we have? I mean, what piece of data don't we have? I mean, and it's a bit scary if you think about it that way. It's almost kind of terrifying, and at the same time, it's maybe almost freeing, to understand that. So when you and I are sitting together, and I think a lot of people will like appreciate this analogy. You have these like layers of conversations. If I'm on the phone with you but I can't see you, then I've only got your voice to interpret something. And generally speaking, I'm going to take your voice. I'm going to take it a step back. If you and I are texting something, right? How many people on this listening to this chat right now have texted something that was completely misinterpreted from what you texted because tone was lost, feeling was lost, right? That kind of thing. Then I can get on the phone with you. Now I can hear your voice inflection. I can hear how you're responding to things. I know more. I've got more data points to understand the interaction we're having. We're on a video chat right now. I can see certain things. And I can get, but how many people hate the fact that you're not in a room when you're in a biz pitch moment or you're in a big presentation moment? You want to be in the room because you want to feel energy, right? Like there's visual energy, but then there's room energy. You're in the room with the person and you start to begin to feel like real back and forth, real energy to people. So think about like in a human experience, those layers of things, and the more we're open up to in terms of aperture, the more we can do. And from a digital footprint, you got to think of it that way. We need to be thinking about experience design and experience creation in a way to say, how do we invite meaningful, relevant ways for our customers to give us more interaction, ability, right? And then how can we use all of that information in a unified, synchronous way so that it all works together? So we know all of those things about each other. So again, I'm going to go back to like call center. When you call a call center, there's a script that's created, right? There's an analysis of that. There's a sentiment analysis that can say, was it a good call or a bad call? Was it a happy call? Was it a sad call? Right? And now I don't have to send everything that you said in the call over to the other system to know Ryan's in a good mood today. And so it's okay for us to do the good mood stuff over there, right? So that those connecting endpoints, right? It's not so much about can we collect the data? It really is back to the opening of this conversation, which is, can the data be utilized where it needs to be utilized so that every channel is working off of that same piece of knowledge, that base piece understanding of where's Ryan at today, right? And that, I think that's really the key.
Do you feel that as we automate more and more of these systems, we do end up losing some of the human element between the brand and the customer? And I ask this, as you were saying, automating through the IVR call center systems, like one of the tricks that I started doing when I'm stuck in one of the virtual agents, I just start yelling at it, right? And then you get escalated to somebody who is
person, agent,
and,
yelling at it. You're hoping that the AI knows you just want a person.
And on their screen it's saying this is an aggravated person, and then they pick up and say, oh hey, how's it going? They're like, wait a minute, this isn't what I expected, right? So there's a detachment because you're getting customers now frustrated, stuck in an automated loop, and that feedback, does it get back, does it not get back? It's all disconnected now. So are we gonna see an increasing loss of, oh hey, you've fallen out of our interaction loop and you're gone?
Man, I think you're kind of asking the 20-ton elephant in the room question, right? When's too much automation, right? When's too much virtual, too virtual? And I think the best CX practitioners are going to have to find a balance, right? They're going to have to find the balance between what are and I think the way I would look at it, right? The way I would normally coach is like, where do you have the operational inefficiency? So in the extremes that you're talking about, right, when a customer is truly having a bad experience, or maybe they're having an experience that could lead to a bad experience, I would want to bifurcate immediately and get them into a human interaction. When it's simple things like, I just need to check on the status of something and I want to ask a couple of quick questions and get answers back that are relevant to me, great place for full automation, because, hey, shipping status, it's here, here's when you're going to get it, and you're going to see it. So I think it's more of a spectrum question that you're asking, which is like, when is fully automated not good? Probably when you have zero ability for the humans to help each other. It's too much. That'll have gone too far. But I do think that there's places where we can say there are very simple parts of customer interaction where they just expect to get an answer quickly. And you don't want that to become something that's a multi-million operational overhead challenge in order to facilitate that, when you have tools can do it, right? But you do want your operational overhead to be spent on places where you're preventing the loss of a customer. You're preventing the customer from becoming disenchanted with your brand. That's where you're like, I'd rather the money be spent on that human interaction. So I think we have to look at it a bit as like an operational challenge, as much as we have to look at it as a pure theoretical challenge in terms of what automation can do. We just have to pick that point in time. I'll just make it hardcore. I got $1 to spend. Would I rather spend that dollar getting somebody some information back that's easy to provide them, or would I rather spend that dollar making sure I never lose that customer? Right. And I think, maybe that's a little too simplified answer, but that's the way I think we have to think about it, is where's this automation going to give us the ability to eliminate wasted dollar or overhead dollar we don't need to be spending, when we could be spending it on something more intelligent. Right.
I think that's a perfect example, because then that leads to the question of, me as an organization, I want to rush to implement these technologies. I've heard that it can help in all these different ways. What are your recommendations on how should we approach? What are the steps? How do we even begin to rationalize, is this a good investment? Is it not? Here's where we need to put more time and effort into.
Yeah, I think of it like a toolkit, right? You've got a toolbox, and you're about to embark on a project at home, whatever it is. You're going to run a new electrical wire, put in a new electrical thing, and you watched a couple of YouTube videos and you feel pretty good about it, and you need to go to Home Depot and buy the tool. If I just own that tool, I'll be able to do it. And there's still something about the practiced hands of a journey electrician who knows how to do that work is going to do it faster. They're going to do it cleaner the first time. They're not going to trip on a mistake and then have to correct it. So just owning the tool doesn't really replace understanding of how to use the tool in its best way. And I think this is kind of I think it's a classic mistake I've seen for 25 years in the career, is that if we just buy that tool, then we'll solve this problem. And then it's about how quickly can we get the tool implemented and turned on. Let's do that. Let's go implement it, turn it on as fast as possible. We did it. It's on. 4 months. We got it. It's up and running. And then you have a room full of practitioners standing around going, okay, I got to schedule an email today. It's got to go out at 3:00. Well, wait a minute. Like, what would we do this for? So I think there's this real need, if you will, to say it's one thing to just, buy a tool to do a single project in a home, versus I'm going to buy a tool because I know that I'm going to replicate that project 100 times over. And then if I'm going to replicate that project 100 times over, I'm going to get some training, right? And really, there's layers of training. You can watch a video and learn how to do it by watching someone else do it online. But I think we would all agree that if the electrician came over to our house and showed us how to do it, we'd learn even faster. So I think that's the nature of the value of what an agency can bring, or what a consultancy or what a partner can bring to a client, is a little bit less of the telling them what to do, but really being a partner in the how do we get this thing adopted by the organization, right? We use a term a lot right now. We call it value realization. Just our fancy way of saying, how do you quickly get a piece of technology that you want to implement generating the return you asked it to return to you? And it's very much a lot of the times about alignment in the earliest phases of the engagement. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. We know that these things are going to change. When these things change, we understand processes are going to change. And we're doing that before we put the tool in place, right? And we're doing it with a knowledge and an understanding of what it looks like when it's done well, so that the next client we're working with is going to get there that much faster, because we're in the building with them and we're showing them how to do it. And then we're standing next to them while they do the first 10. And then over time, we can walk away, right? So I think that the agency relationship has to kind of get focused, right? Because purely being about just implementing the tech gets you so far. And it's necessary. We have to have that thing. We have to efficiently deploy technology. We have to efficiently build data. Those things have to occur. But then what I look for after that is sort of that kind of partner, right? That trusted partner who can say, but also let's invest in a little bit of training here.
Yeah.
My electrician analogy, right? If I could spend $100 to be trained how to do something and it's going to go 55 times faster, go quicker, and I don't burn my house down, would I have rather spent that $100 on the training, or would I have rather watched the YouTube video and burn my house down? It's a bit extreme, but that's a lot of what we're talking about is, right, where is the investment dollar coming from to say, yes, I'm about to spend millions of dollars on a piece of technology. I should spend some reasonable amount of money making sure that we deploy that technology with some excellence, right? Value. And I think that's where we have to start thinking about as practitioners, is how do we go and do that, right?
Yeah, we've talked about this in some of my other episodes where, there is a journey of adoption, right? And it ends in change management and training and being able to adopt the tools, right? I think a lot of times what I've seen is shiny new object comes out and organizations will say, that's going to solve my problem. Just get it.
Yeah.
And then they skip all of the leading steps and the following steps to understand the problem they're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And then adopt the technology and get it effectively in the workforce.
Yeah.
And that's not this, right? There's still a lot of work that has to be done.
Yeah. If you want to build the perfect home, at some point, your foundation has to match what you want your home to be. And I think it's very difficult at times because a lot of organizations have built their home over years and years and years, but the foundation was laid once in time. And we've added new pieces to the foundation. We've tried to restructure parts of it, but the original foundation is what it is. And then when you start trying to build on top of that foundation, sometimes it's not ready for the next thing that we're trying to do. The foundation can be everything from the concrete in the ground to the plumbing in the walls. And it's the hard pain at times to say, it's time to take this thing down to the foundation and rebuild it, right? And it's not always feasible for everyone. Not everyone has the budget to do so, right? And so how do we do it, right? And I think we're starting to see kind of like, well, what I can do is I can do a new foundation in a new area, and eventually I can move to replacing, over time. Whereas some organizations are saying, dude, just freaking tear it all out of the ground and let's rebuild from the ground up because we want to get there the fastest. Right. So there's this push pull between first to market, fastest to get to that utopia, or the ones that are saying, I'm going to get there as quickly as I can with efficiency and in quality. And I don't think either philosophy is necessarily wrong. It's just about the philosophy that fits what your brand needs at any point in time. If you're in a really deeply competitive situation in a retail environment with someone like an Amazon, you may need to freaking tear the foundation out and rebuild as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Because by the time you go through a slow transformation, man, it's just going to be so far past you can't keep up. In other industries, that's not always true, right? And I think it's irresponsible, if we're always saying, tear it all out and rebuild from the ground up. And I think sometimes we need to say that, right? So there's this value that we have to think through, right?
Yeah. I like to think the innovation journey, you can have your innovation-led transformation where you're doing some of the new stuff up front and then transforming the rest of the legacy systems behind it, or you're starting with the legacy transformation so you could do innovation in the future, and you have to balance the two. So we're almost at time. How do we get in contact with you if we want to get started?
Well, the easiest place to start would just be to blend360.com, and you can submit a request if you want to talk to us about any of these topics. You can hit me directly. It's my first name, Ryan, my second name, Serpan. So Ryan.Serpan at blend360.com would be an easy way to reach out to me directly. But I would really encourage, hit the website and submit through there because, just depending on the nature of your challenges, the nature of things you're dealing with, there's a huge family behind us where, the organization of Blend 360 is global. It's over, 1,100 people. We have deep experience in areas of data science, data engineering, the BI and intelligence, right? CX for sure, AI consulting. So I may not be the right one. If this is a data challenge for you, we need to get you with our data team. If it's a science challenge and you want to build, these capabilities in terms of modeling, it's that team, right? So I think the best effort right now would be to go through that channel, and we'll get you what you need, right? Blend 360 is I use all these carpenter and plumber analogies. We like to believe that we really show up with the tool belt on, and we like to get to work and help clients actually do stuff and kind of get it there. So. But if it's CX related, give me a call. We'll take care of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much, AJ.
Yep.
It's been wonderful.
Take care. Bye.